Hello everybody, and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the 2024 presidential election, and we'll be looking at the easiest path to victory for Kamala Harris. What is, in other words, her simplest path to get to that all-important 270 number. So, we're going to talk about it today. Before I do that, I have two things to ask of you. The first is, as I always do, please do subscribe. We're so close to 14,000. It would mean a lot to me if we could get there soon. Secondly, I have noticed an uptick in people joining the channel as members, which means so much to me. Again, check the description for the names of the people who've joined the membership. I don't ask for a Patreon. I don't in my live streams when I do go live. I never have people super chat. I try to respond to all chats. So if you'd like to support the channel, you can sign up for a $2 a month membership. Again, $2 just in 1 month. If you'd like to do that, that does really help me out. And if you'd like to support the channel that way, great way to do it. But if you don't want to do that, and if you just want to continue watching my videos, that already is doing so much for me. So do not worry about it if you can't or if you don't want to. So today we're going to talk about the Kamala Harris path to 270. I've already filled out all but 7 states here, and I have given some of the more competitive states away. So for example, I've already given Kamala Harris New Hampshire, Virginia, and Nebraska's 2nd district. And I've already given Donald Trump states like Florida, Texas, and Alaska. So this map is kind of the most scaled down battleground map you're going to see, but all 70 of these states, you can make a very reasonable case for any 7 of them being toss-ups. So we're going to work with these. Kamala Harris starts at 226 electoral votes. She needs to get to 270, 44 more. And we're going to start from the easiest state for her to win of these 7. And that to me is Michigan. Now, Michigan, I think, is easily the bluest of these states. In 2016, it was the bluest of these states except for Nevada. And in 2020, it was the bluest of these states. If we take a look at Michigan, Biden won this state by 150,000 votes. It was a 3-point margin victory for him. And that was mostly powered through the suburbs of Detroit and Grand Rapids, despite the fact that Trump actually got a very good rural turnout. I mean, in 2016, Trump won Michigan off the back of rural voters, but in 2020, rural turnout for Donald Trump was even higher. So it got really big for Trump in these rural areas in the northern and central part of the state. But Biden was able to offset that because in the counties outside of Detroit and in the counties in the Grand Rapids area, he did 5, 6, 7 points better than Hillary Clinton. That was enough to flip the state back, although by a margin a lot closer than a lot of people expected. So this year in Michigan, the polls do show a relatively close race. Right now, Kamala Harris leads by 2.5, which is decent for her. It definitely, I think Democrats would feel better if she was up by 4 or 5. But this isn't a margin that I think is a warning sign for her. And again, most polls do give her the advantage here. Trafalgar, which is a GOP poll, they had Trump winning the state in 2020 by a point. They have it at tie here. Redfield and Wilton, which actually had her down by, I believe, a point. Let's see. Redfield and Wilton, they had Trump up by 1 on August 15th. And then in their poll, they finished on the 28th of August. They had Harris up by 3. Emerson has Harris up by 4. That's another good nonpartisan pollster. Morning Consult has her up by 3 when they push undecided voters. Epic MRA, which is actually a local poll, which I like, does have Trump up by 1. But most polls do show a lead for Harris. And even Trafalgar, which is arguably the most friendly GOP poll that is still on 538, they still show a very close race. And in 2022, obviously, a lot of polls had a close race between Tudor Dixon and Gretchen Whitmer, including Trafalgar. And that just didn't materialize. Obviously, midterm polling misses are different from presidential polling misses. But the fact that Harris is up by 2.5, the fact this was the bluest of the 7 states in 2020, and the fact that, again, if you look at recent election results, even the primary turnout data from this year, which, I don't love primary turnout data, but it does show that there is energy on the Democratic side. To me, Michigan is the easiest of the 7 states for Kamala Harris. But she still has a ways to go. And she needs at least 2 more states. Obviously, Pennsylvania is the biggest left, so if she takes Pennsylvania and then wins any one of these states other than Nevada, she's the president. But we're not going to talk about Pennsylvania just yet. Instead, we're going to go to the state of Arizona. Now, Arizona, this is a state that in my most recent presidential election official prediction, I was pretty bullish on Harris in. And that's because of one thing, and I say this every time I talk about Arizona. So again, if you've watched one of my videos before, you'll know what I'm about to say. Maricopa County is where the money is. This county. It's in the central part of the state. I will show you how I voted in 2020 in just 1 second here. But this county, it's where Phoenix is. It's where those suburbs are. Geographically, it's a large county. And as you can see, both Biden and Trump got, Trump got nearly a million votes. Biden got over a million votes here. And this is classic, used to be pretty solidly Republican, has trended towards Democrats in recent years. In 2016, voted for Trump by 3, or I think by maybe a point and a half, voted for Biden by over 2% in 2020. In 2022, it came out big for Democrats. So this has been a problem for Republicans in Arizona. They haven't won a federal statewide race here since 2016. They lost Senate races 3 elections in a row. They lost the governorship in 2022. They lost a bunch of down ballot offices in 2022 as well. And this is why. Because in Maricopa County, where they used to win, they don't win anymore. And when in 2020, 61% of the vote came from this county. This isn't like a small county that I'm just using as a case study. No, literally, most of the time, the way Maricopa votes is the way the state votes. And so that's why Republicans have had a problem here, because in federal elections, they used to win Maricopa County, but they haven't done that since 2016. And coincidentally, they haven't won Arizona federally since 2016. And so what it comes down to for Harris is, can she just do even a point and a half, 2 points better in Maricopa County? And if you look at the trends from 2016, it got 5 points bluer. And in the 2022 Senate race, Kelly won it by 4 more than Joe Biden did. So yeah, I absolutely believe that she can win it by, maybe double what Biden did. Biden won it by 2. Maybe she can win it by 4. On a good night, she might win it by 5 or 6. But regardless, it's not only Maricopa, though. The second biggest county in the state, Pima, also, trended towards Biden in 2020 by a very similar amount. And Trump can do better in the rural counties. They have been moving towards him, especially in the southern part of the state, where potentially Republicans are in a campaign on the border. But again, in 2022, Republicans really had a big polling lead in that governor's race, and they were tied in the Senate race. They lost both those races. This time around, if we take a look at the polling data we have here, Kamala Harris is up by 0.2. The polls understated Mark Kelly by 3.5. They understated Katie Hobbs by 3. Again, never apply midterm polling miss to a presidential polling miss, but in 2022, obviously, Democrats did beat their polls here. And in 2020, the polls did underestimate Trump, but, only by about 2%. So either way, the polls do tend to be pretty accurate here. Good pollsters show Harris ahead. To me, her best, the best evidence that she's ahead in Arizona was the NYT poll, which had her up by 5%. She was at 50% of the vote. So I think this state, to me, is easily her second best state. Arizona and Michigan, these are the 2 swing states that I think are clearly in Harris's direction. But now that being said, we've got to eliminate some states. And I think still her worst state here is going to be North Carolina. Now, North Carolina, obviously, I don't want to talk about it too much because this is more of a Harris-focused video. I'll do the same thing for Trump within a few days, hopefully. But the thing with North Carolina is the Democrats, and with Arizona, I said Republicans have won a federal statewide race here since 2016. North Carolina Republicans have won a federal statewide race in Arizona since 2016. It's been 8 years for them. For Democrats, it's been double that. Since 2008, they haven't won a federal statewide race here. And they've come really close. They've had chances. In 2020, Biden led the polls here. And again, in the polls, you've seen a lot of momentum for Kamala Harris in North Carolina, right? Like in the 538 average right now, she's only down by half a point. And she actually, has brought it pretty close in recent days. She was actually up last week. But again, we take a look at these latest polls. They've showed a bit of movement towards Trump. Emerson, which is a, pretty, I'd say, reputable nonpartisan pollster, they have a Trump advantage here. So this is a state that, yeah, Democrats can win it. Kamala Harris as well within striking distance. But again, I'm going to believe it when I see it. And until we have really good evidence that this state's actually on track to flip, I'm going to keep it red. And so that, to me, is a state that Donald Trump should win. But the rest of these states, I think, are genuinely so pure toss-ups. And so it comes down to me, not Nevada, not Wisconsin, even though the polls in Nevada have been very good for Harris recently. To me, it comes down to Georgia or Pennsylvania. Which one is better for Harris? And for now, I'm going to give her Pennsylvania. Now, the interesting thing about Georgia is that if she were to win Georgia, right, like let's say Georgia's better for her, she'd still win one of these 3 states. So Pennsylvania is a bit more convenient for her. But regardless, Pennsylvania, I do think is a bit better for her at this point. Although it is closer than people think. But let's talk about Pennsylvania just to kind of finish off this video here, because these are the 3 states. I already locked down North Carolina just to talk about it, but these are the 3 states. It's Michigan, it's Pennsylvania, it's Arizona. These are the 3 states she needs. But again, let's talk about Pennsylvania. So look at the polls. Right now, in this state's 538 average, we can see it's a very close race with Harris up by 1.2%, the exact margin Donald Trump lost the state by in 2020. Latest polls, Trafalgar only has her down by 2, which is pretty good. They had Dr. Oz winning by, I think, 4 or 5 points in 2022. They had Trump winning the state in 2020 by about a point. Wick also has Trump up by 1. This is another GOP-aligned poll, but it's not a bad one, I'd say. Redfield has Harris up by 1. Emerson has a tied race, which is, I think a very fair assessment of where we are right now. Morning Consult did, in their likely voter undecided push, they had Harris up by 3. So that's obviously a good sign for her. And then, go to some of these other polls. Rizzo and Ward, this is Trump's pollster. They had Trump up by 1. So we've gotten some mixed results. There's not like a clear trend here. The Republican polls are showing good news for Republicans. The nonpartisan polls are pretty close, but they do tilt a bit towards Harris, which is why I think that Pennsylvania could be good for her. But the reason I think this is just because in 2020, Trump did people don't talk about how well Trump did in Pennsylvania, right? Like, this is a state that he was down by 5 points in the polls in. Democrats put all their money and time into this state because everyone knew it was going to be the most important state. Joe Biden was from Scranton. He, really talked about that a lot. He made that a central point of the campaign. And Trump only lost here by, 80,000 votes, right? So Trump came really close here in 2020, but he only, he didn't do that because he did better than people thought in the suburbs or because, he did 20 points better with working class voters. It was just because these rural counties turned out huge for him. I mean, if we talk about the size of the lead here, this is a graphic that'll show you, these dots may seem small, but when you add them all up, that's a lot of votes. Just go to these counties, right? Like in these areas outside of, say, Pittsburgh, for example, Trump got 130K here, 31K here, 48K here, 28K here. Go to the central part of the state, 57K here. So in these counties, right, like that might not seem like a lot, but in Franklin County, which is in the southern part of the state, very rural, Trump netted 35,000 votes. That is almost half, that's almost half of Biden's statewide margin, right? So every county truly matters in Pennsylvania. And so just the fact that Trump did so well in these rural counties is what allowed it to make it close. Because if you look at Philadelphia in these suburbs, they all swung towards Biden big time. Scranton area, actually, Biden did relatively well there compared to Hillary Clinton in 2016. So that's why Trump came so close to winning Pennsylvania. This time his problem is that we know turnouts can be down across the board. Not by a lot. I don't think this will be a low turnout election by any means, but 2020 was an incredibly high turnout election. And this time around, not necessarily sure that that we're going to see, the Democrat get 81 million votes and the Republican get 74 million. I think it could be down for both parties. But in rural areas specifically, like in 2022, we saw rural turnout wasn't amazing for Republicans in Pennsylvania. It was good in other places, but in Pennsylvania, it was not as good as it could have been. And so the question becomes, can Trump either needs to improve in the suburbs or hope rural turnout stays the same? He has to do one of those two things. And to me, they're definitely one of those two things happening isn't crazy. Like, I could see it happening, but the Philadelphia suburbs swung way towards Democrats in 2020. In 2022, everyone thought that Dr. Oz was going to do very well in these suburbs, and they ended up, being pretty neutral in that they didn't swing. They swung maybe a point towards Fetterman. But in 2024, this time around, we have pretty good, I'd say, indication that the suburbs are going to continue to move left, just based on the polls we have and the fact that Kamala Harris's approval rating is going up and the fact Democrats broadly seem to be holding on to their gains with white women, white men, educated people of all races. And those are, the suburbs are wider than the nation on average. They're also more educated than the nation on average. And we know Democrats in the past have struggled with white voters. In the polls, they're holding on to those gains. So, that's kind of all to say that, look, Trump needs one of two things to go right for him in Pennsylvania, and neither of them is more likely than not to happen. The good news is he has two things that he can bank on, not one. But again, right now, would I bet on it? Not more than I'd bet on him winning Georgia or North Carolina or Wisconsin or Nevada. So that's Harris's path to 271. It's these three states. It's Michigan, then Arizona, then back to the Rust Belt with Pennsylvania. It's that coalition, because she can lose Wisconsin, she can lose Nevada, she can lose both these states in the South, North Carolina and Georgia. She can still be the president. So those are the three states that she needs. She needs Michigan, Arizona, Pennsylvania. So let me know what you think. Let me know if there is a state you'd put in place of Pennsylvania, maybe in place of Arizona. I want to hear from you. Tell me what you want to see for the next videos, and I will see you all tomorrow.